this is a step in the right direction. I think what it could be a part of is a much bigger trend. I think we'll be able to see curation become a new form of produced value. They're not actually literally creating articles. They're just curating. And that is value in and of itself. Facebook, they had to do a settlement around another privacy thing. And now they're putting in more costs to manage privacy, to manage content, abusive content. Facebook unveils details of its content oversight board. What they're saying is we're going to create an independent entity with a board, with an independent group of experts charged with the power to review and overturn decisions by the firm's army of content moderators, calling it an oversight board. This is a great step in the right direction. This is something that we've said should really be the role of some kind of pseudo-government entity. This article talks about the role of ICON in the creation of the internet and kind of web domain registry, right? When you have a web domain, you need to register it with ICON. That was a U.S. organization. Now I think we spun it out into some like international cohort. But anyway, this is a step in the right direction. I think what it could be a part of is a much bigger trend. And one of the graphics that we have in the book is our network effect ladder. And you'll see here this curation. Curation is a form of production. Okay, this is kind of how you can create value, particularly in content platforms. So you have different types of kind of value creation. We call it the 5 C's. Curation being one of those. And so I think we'll be able to see curation become a new form of produced value. So literally, what is Drudge Report? It's just curation. They're not actually literally creating articles. They're just curating. And that is value in and of itself. What is Facebook doing here? Well, they're kind of letting someone else to rebut their curation practices. I think what would be really interesting to see is, can you actually have a paid service? I'd be willing to bet that if you had trusted third parties on Facebook or different social media platforms that you could pay for them to curate your news. Everyone, talking about fake news. It's basically a new form of editor, right? And that editor is verifying what information, what articles are true or not. And look, there's a lot of gray matter in what is true, right? So there's some bias and some opinion that naturally goes into that decision, and that's fine. But if you were able to choose from a community of third-party editors and curators, and they're helping to bring a human touch to articles that they know are of interest to you. And, you could obviously subscribe to people that, or editors or channels that share similar points of view as you or are of interest to you. And they're going to curate a special feed of articles around that theme or subject matter. They're going to help verify that those articles are true and valid. And you could pay for that. And I bet a lot of people would pay for that. Could be $1 a month, could be $1 a quarter. It doesn't need to be a lot of money if you have the scale of one of these platforms like a Facebook. So news is kind of like the 1.0 aggregator curation. Same thing as Drudge Report. You're seeing Facebook have its own blend of this where they do their own curation with algorithms. And now if they take a misstep on that, now they have an independent review. I think that's good in general. That's one of the biggest gripes of these producers. And that's what we've spoken about is when the platform penalizes the producer. We talk about this with Uber. We talk about this with Amazon and Facebook. When the platform penalizes the producer, what recourse do they have to challenge that? This idea of an independent oversight board is not actually something that could be unique to Facebook. It could also be applicable to many of the other tech monopolies, to an Uber, to an Amazon, to all of the, maybe in some way to Google, certainly YouTube. But what is the role of helping to protect producers And this is something that Facebook is doing on its own volition. And people may say, oh, well, they had to do it and try and take away from the fact that they've done this. And you know what? I generally would disregard that critique. I think you got to give credit to Facebook to do this, to take the initiative on this, and put forward plans of its own, because the government is failing to act. Facebook has asked the government to act, and they continue to just basically do nothing. So it's kind of unfortunate, but I think this is actually a great step in the right direction and a model that many other tech monopolies could look at doing and voluntarily doing, because it'll actually, like, for example, if Lyft did this, do you think that they would garner more support and credibility with their drivers? Absolutely. Absolutely. You would just engender much more trust from your drivers. So if you are a smaller platform that is competing with a large tech monopoly, would you want to go do something like this and try and get out in front of that and engender more support from your supply, your producer base? That actually could be a pretty good thing for you to consider. So I really like where Facebook's going with this. And I think all large platforms, all tech monopolies should really take note and consider this. I don't think that's that expensive compared to all the other costs they have to pay, or the lawsuits, or the threat of regulation. Hi, this is Alex from Winner Take All. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the content. Feel free to leave a comment, ask us questions, and definitely make sure to join us on our next live stream.